right, I'm making this video for the community that calls himself Chosen. I'm not exactly sure if it's anything as supernatural or if it's just being in an environment that you don't understand. Sometimes if an environment decide if it changes or it sours, you have to be able to read the room to know either how to fight back against it or start planning your departure. More likely than not, the crux of the subject matter where people speak about sabotage and things like that, more often than likely it happened on the job someplace where you do a very good job. You know, you show up to work every day, you work hard, but the right people don't see your value. The people at the bottom of the echelon, like your peers, low level management, see it and they have access to maybe managers or people at the top who they figured out over time how to kind of, they call it managing up, or how to get them involved. And what happens is they'll begin controlling the narrative about you and your work. And the reason they're able to get away with this is because upper level management, they're largely, they don't really don't pay attention to what goes on at the bottom. They don't really care about the nuances. They only care about the metrics. I've noticed this across different industries where you may have owners or very higher ups where they only have a few go-to people and everybody else they really don't talk to them or have any interactions with them. So the person at the bottom, they understand this and they know that they can control the narrative about you and your work. How, on the contrary, many of the narratives and conversations had about you, you're not privy to it. You know, you'll have it where they'll have meetings about you that you're not involved in. You may look up where there may have been 10 meetings about you or 10 conversations had about you, but nobody at the top ever stopped to question you about your input. And a lot of times they don't even know you personally or had any conversations with you. You know, and this is why I say upper level management is largely lazy. You would think that if a person is bringing an issue, they would invite the other person in so they have an opportunity to defend themselves or to present a counter narrative, but it doesn't happen. You know, as I said, it's important to control the narrative about your work, meaning that as soon as you get to an organization, the value that you bring to a company, the right person in the right position has to know about it. Otherwise, when you go in at the bottom, it's not, I think they call it the beginner's paradox, where the value and all the skills and talents that you have are largely unknown to upper level management, but your peers see it immediately and they'll begin gauging themselves against you. And if you have anything that makes you stand out, the likelihood of them going to upper level management and saying something about it is not likely to happen. If anything, if you do have any positive traits, if you work hard or you have a positive attitude, they have this proclivitous nature of reframing it as a liability or a risk to the agency. The other thing is, suppose the person that's on the receiving end of like the smear campaign, you never see it coming. You're blindsided. Out of nowhere, you will realize something is off where you'll have some manager, they'll come by and say something cryptic to you, and you're like, what the hell is that? You know, they'll give you some vague and ambiguous statement. You don't really never think nothing of it. But the whole time you have somebody poisoning a well about you. And The thing is, all of the information I've seen online where it said the quote unquote chosen people just be quiet and just put your head down. Well, I can say for about 20 years, the whole thing about being quiet and going gray rock does not work. What happens is these type of people who have this type of saboteuring demeanor, they already know you're not going to say anything, and they carefully pick who they think that may be a threat to them or gatekeeping for some type of click they have on the company. And if you be quiet and you just put your head down, the people at the top, they don't know your hustle, they don't know your work ethics or your talents. And if the people at the top don't know your talents or what value you bring, your strengths will be used against you, and other people will always be in a position. Well, most of the time, it's not even necessarily about the truth. It's always using this type of hyperbole or reframing your work to mean something else, or reframing your personality, or trying to set a bogus narrative surrounding you that they can convince some people to believe as a risk. And it's two things, it's a few things you'll have to do. You have to fight back. They, like I said, they only pick targets they know that'll be an easy target who will simply just go away. But you have to know who to complain to within that organization and exactly what type of language to use to get them involved, to provoke them to espouse your talking points. The other thing is, a lot of times you'll see people are afraid of confrontation, but sometimes it has to happen. Every time I've seen it happen to, it's not the underperforming worker, it's the overachieving worker that an established group of people may feel threatened by. And they'll start the smear campaign and the saboteuring. I've seen this happen across different type of industries from different groups and races of people. One of the things I would say, you have, in some cases, you have to bypass middle level management and find a person at the top and give you. And when you do it, you can't candy coat the language. You got to deal straight, and you got to use the language and come out swinging, so that the persons know that you'll say something. And you can't wait till it's too late, because by then the narrative has already been said and you were never invited to the room. Real talk. And the other thing is, I'll say, is everybody has a limit. Every now and then you'll run into a person like David Goggins or something like that. That's for another discussion. Most people are not like that. Everybody has limits. And the longer that it goes on, it's going to drain you, and you'll end up with all types of, um, you'll end up where you'll lose your mind and body connection. So you have to do something. Nobody says you got to go out and curse them out. Maybe maybe you may have to brandish that once they'll know that you will do something. But you'll have to do something, because doing nothing it'll never stop.